Strap into your seats and get ready. It's time for the Mortarpod.
Hey everybody, Alex Stephenson and Jake Faas here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Mortarpod. Sorry we're a day late here, but we just ended up watching Game of Thrones and
Lost track of time.
went too late and couldn't record one. So one day late, unfortunately, on this one, but
What can you do?
we're ready now.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot to cover this week. It's going to be cool. A lot of cards to look at. Mortarpod's brought to you by SeemsGoodMagic.com. If you haven't checked it out yet, it's a website where I post all sorts of draft videos. There's cube content, just tons of videos. Almost every day there's a new draft video posted. So if you just enjoy watching drafting portions of videos too, have found that a lot of people have tended to enjoy just watching the draft videos because they have so many to choose from. So it's kind of cool that that's worked out for people that maybe don't necessarily need a tutorial on how to play.
Yeah.
But
Want to see the drafting process go down?
yeah, so I recommend checking it out. Plenty to look at and plenty more on the way. Journey into Nyx is a pretty fun format to play. Full block has been pretty good. I've tried a bunch of different archetypes and I've found success all over the place. Blue-red. Today I did blue-white flyers. That worked well in full block.
I really like blue-red, actually. I'm glad you had success with it, too, because when I played it, I really enjoyed it myself.
Yeah, it works really well in full block, for sure. Or at least that deck did. I had a lot of burn spells, though, like Double Lightning Strike, Magma Jet, Bolt of Keranos, so...
Yeah, well, that's necessary in that style of deck, too. Like, in the blue-red strategy, you want that.
Yeah, I mean, it worked really well, for sure. Alright, well, let's jump right into it. We do actually have quite a bit to talk about with this set, and Jake's got a lot of splaining to do because some of these I don't understand. So it's going to be tutorial for me too. Cyclical evolution. Well, you heard it. Cyclical evolution.
Just gotta just do it.
Yeah. So this week's Ice Age. If you don't know what this segment of the show is. Cyclical evolution is where we look at the old cycles of Magic. So we're kind of chronologically going through and looking at cycles that maybe people didn't realize were cycles, or they're not always the most obvious ones. We're kind of trying to pull out the ones where we know that they designed them with a purpose in mind and that there's some sort of design connection there. So let's start it off. We got Ice Age to go through. Got the land cycles that were known as Pain Lands.
This is their first appearance.
Okay. So the funny thing about Pain Lands is newer players sort of didn't understand the value of getting the diversity in mana but having to pay or deal 1 damage to you. So they didn't. It was newer players were having a real hard time with Pain Lands and seeing them as beneficial. Which was a big reason why they printed the Sun Petal Grove cycle, all of that, the core set lands from M10.
The buddy lands.
So, I mean, we haven't gotten to them yet, but that's kind of an explanation to why, you don't see Pain Lands printed anymore. With this, we've got Adakar Wastes, which was blue-white, Brushland, which was green-white, Carplusan Forest, which was red-green, Sulphurous Springs, which was black-red, and Underground River, which is blue-black. And these are pretty cool pictures. Sulphurous Springs is kind of funny because it's got the little devil in a tar pit.
Yeah. And they've definitely gotten away from putting figures in their, or discernible figures in their land art. They don't like to do that anymore. So, like, off in the distance is okay, but when you're up close, like, even the one in Adakar Waste, I don't think is acceptable by their standards today, unless they were facing away from the camera,
I see.
But, anyway, it is a really good cycle. Carplusan Forest probably makes the least sense. It's just it looks like rocks. I don't understand it. It's just not forest at all.
Brushland's got the pumpkin patch.
Yeah, and it looks like a castle in the foggy distance. So
Huh. I wonder if you're right. I don't know.
yeah, it's cool art. I like Brushland, and Underground River was always, I think, my favorite. Well, Adakar Waste actually is really, really cool.
Now, did they ever do? They end up doing this land cycle, Pain Lands for enemy colors.
They did. They ended up doing that in Apocalypse. They tried it with Tempest. It wasn't the same. It was like a bad mashup of this and
Okay.
the Depletion Lands.
So we will get to that eventually as well. But that's it for the Pain Lands in this set. Were they highly played at the time, do you think?
I think so, yeah. I think so because they weren't really available or the duels weren't really available if they had already split Type 2 out,
Okay.
which I think they had.
At that point, they may have
Yeah.
split it into different.
formats. So
Okay.
if it was split into different formats, these would be the ones you would play instead of the duels. So
Okay.
they definitely did block. I know that they did Ice Age.
Oh, cool. Ice Age block, yeah. All right, so Jake's going to have to explain this one, but we've got 2 cards from each color. In blue, we have Breath of Dreams and Wrath of Merit Lage. In red, we have Anarchy and Curse of Merit Lage. In white, we have Justice and Drought. In black, we have Leshrak's Sigil and Stench of Evil. In green, we have Freyalize's Charm and Thought Leech. Now, Jake, you're going to explain how these are all sort of related?
Well, I guess they're similar to the alpha cycle of color hosers. For each one color gets 2 color hosers for their enemies. So blue got Breath of Dreams and Wrath of Merit Lage to fight green and red, respectively.
Oh, okay.
And then red got Anarchy and Curse of Merit Lage to fight white and blue. And so on down the line, basically. There's not really much more to say about it. They kind of oppose each other in a way. Breath of Dreams and Thought Leech. Breath of Dreams makes it so that your opponent's creatures are going to eventually start dying, But if your opponent has a Thought Leech out on you, they're going to be gaining life every time you keep Breath of Dreams out, and they'll be gaining more life each time. Wrath of Merit Lage keeps all red creatures tapped down, and it comes in and taps them all down. Curse of Merit Lage taps down all islands and then keeps them tapped down. So Curse is like, screw your lands, and Wrath is like, well, screw your creatures. So they have a little bit of, a weirdo cross synergy. Like Leshrak's Sigil and Freyalize's Charm probably the clearest of the two, because they basically counter each other. And then they each have the ability to bounce themselves to their hands. So they're like an exact copy in that respect.
Okay.
Drought is... Well, Stench of Evil can destroy Drought by destroying all planes, But I forget what Drought even does, actually.
Before a spell that requires black as part of its casting cost may be cast, or an ability that requires black as part of its activation cost may be played, the controller of that spell or ability sacrifices a swell for each black in the spell's casting cost. Okay. Or the ability's activation cost. I see. So if they're paying black, if it's in the activation cost or convert mana cost.
So to play Stench of Evil in order to destroy Drought, and the reason it would destroy Drought is Drought has upkeep cost of 2 white mana. Stench of Evil is destroy all planes for 2 colorless, 2 black. Stench of Evil deals 1 damage to each player for each planes he or she controls that is destroyed this way, and a player may pay 2 mana or 1 life, for each 1 damage he or she wishes to prevent.
Yeah.
So you can pay 2 to prevent a damage for any amount of damage. So anyway, in order to cast your Stench of Evil, you would at least have to sacrifice 2 swamps in addition. So
that's funny. So they do kind of definitely land hate for each other.
And then Justice was like hating on red spell damage, and creature damage. Whenever a red creature or spell deals damage, Justice deals an equal amount of damage to that creature's controller or that spell's.
Controller.
Wait.
To
Deals
the
an equal
controller of
amount
that
of
creature
damage
or
to the
spell.
controller of that creature or spell. If another spell or effect reduces the amount taken, it does not reduce the amount of damage done by a
Wow.
Justice.
So
Wow.
it can't be prevented.
No. It's saying that Justice checks how much damage was assigned, not how much damage was dealt.
Oh, I see. So it doesn't have to deal the damage?
Whenever a red creature or spell assigns damage, Justice deals an equal amount of damage. That's how it would probably be worded as Oracle text, according to what this is. I don't know what the current article is.
We'll have to look that up later, I guess. But
We'll do a editorial, or what is it called when they do corrections in the newspaper?
Edit. We'll edit it. I see what you're saying. Where you like
the next day you talk about it.
Corrections.
Yeah. Anyway, and then Anarchy can just outright destroy all white permanents, which is the only way that red... See, these are the only ways that red and black have got to deal with these enchantments. And that makes sense why they would put up costs on them, because red can actually outright destroy lands, which would get rid of enchantments too, you know.
Okay, yeah, you're right. So red can technically deal with enchantments. With Anarchy.
And Justice is just... what does red do to that? What does red do to stop that?
Yeah.
That's so broken as far as color hate goes. That's really incredibly mean.
Equal amount of damage to the controller of that creature spell. Another. Yeah, that is crazy. So I see the relationship here. It's kind of just 2 for each color, sort of. Color hate for their enemy colors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How about this one now?
This
now we've got
a little more confusing.
Okay.
And this is the one that I hadn't explained to you.
Okay. So we've got Krovikan Sorcerer, Elvish Healer, Soulburn, Tinderwall, Brine Shaman, Battle Frenzy, Arensen's Aura, Essence Filter, Bone Shaman, and Balduvian Shaman. Now we've got a range of different colors and abilities. One thing I can notice before you even explain it, they all deal with different colors in some way.
Yeah.
Whether it's mentioning a color permanent type or paying a different color than the mana cost for an activated ability.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure that's got to do with it, right?
Yeah, it's an allied color thing. What it looked like to me was that some of these cards, they made this set with the idea of allied colors being a thing, or more important, it had like kind of a few gold cards in it, even some shard cards, so the 3 colored shard cards at rare. And allied colors were kind of a thing. So it looks like some of these were stretched to make them into a cycle, and then 2 of them were kind of left out, but they were there, just not in the way that the rest of the cycle is. So the way that the cycle works is that you can play any of these cards in your deck without the other color of mana or other color of the bonus effect could get you. You don't have to play with the bonus effect, basically, is how all of these work, except for Bone Shaman and Balduvian Shaman, which didn't have a second ability. All of the other ones have like 2 different abilities to work with.
I see.
Krovikan Sorcerer it's actually listed now as 2 separate abilities. It's tap, choose and discard a card from your hand to draw a card, or tap, choose and discard a black card from your hand, draw 2 cards, and then discard one of those cards.
I see.
Elvish Healer is tap, prevent 1 damage to any non-green creature or player, or tap, prevent 2 damage to any green creature.
Okay.
Soulburn is 2 colorless, a black X sorcery. You can only pay red or black mana on X. Soulburn deals X damage to target creature or player where X is where X is X or whatever, and you gain X life. But you only gain 1 life for each black mana spent. You don't gain off the red.
Now, why is there not X in this spell? They just screwed up?
They hadn't come up with the technology to do this effect with X yet. They were working off of Drain Life, not off of Fireball or anything.
Oh, weird.
It wasn't that X didn't exist. It was that they hadn't figured out that X was something they should be doing with this in this effect.
Oh, I see. Okay. Wow.
So,
That's
like,
weird.
Taste of Paradise is the same way, you know. They should
Oh,
have just
okay.
done it with X. And I think there's another one from Alliances
Okay.
that we'll see.
I
Well,
see.
we won't see them, but they're there, you know.
Okay.
Tinder Wall is a 0/3 1 green mana wall. You can sacrifice it to add 2 red mana to your mana pool, or you can pay a red and sacrifice it to have it deal 2 damage to target creature it's blocking. Brine Shaman is a 2 mana 1/1 black creature with tap and sack a creature to give target creature +2/+2 until end of turn. Or for 1 and 2 blue, you can sacrifice a creature to counter target creature spell. Battle Frenzy is a 3 mana instant in red, 2 colorless, 1 red. All green creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn, and all non-green creatures you control get +1/+0. So anyway, you can kind of see how the cycle is going to be playing out. Our Instance Aura lets you counter enchantment spells with the blue ability or destroy enchantments with the white ability on it.
Okay.
Essence Filter lets you destroy all enchantments, or you can choose to destroy all non-white enchantments. And then Bone Shaman and Balduvian Shaman, this is where the cycle didn't get completed, because I really feel like they meant it to be a 10-card cycle, but Bone Shaman is really, it should have had another ability attached to it, like even just a base ability, and then it would have fit a little better. But it's a 2 colorless, 2 red, 3/3, and black. Its activated ability is black.
Oh.
Uh-oh. Okay. Its activated ability is black, and any creature dealt damage by it this turn can't regenerate, or can't be regenerated. And then Balduvian Shaman, it's very wordy, but it's basically for a blue, and it's a 1/1 creature with tap. You can change the text of target white enchantment you control that does not have cumulative upkeep by replacing all instances of one color word with another. And then I don't need to give the example, but so it worked with Circles of Protection, you know, which were actually in this block as well.
I see. So it had some value in this block.
And it worked with Justice, and I think that's it, because it didn't work with Drought.
That's cool though.
I guess it also worked with Reclamation.
It's
which we'll see later.
It's very unique because it's so narrow.
Yeah.
I think it's one of maybe the only instance of a time where we see a permanent and color specified within an activated ability.
Yeah. I think that one, if they really wanted to do it, what they could have done is had it be, you can do the Sleight of Mind thing on any enchantment, but then destroy it at end of turn or whatever. And then they had the white version, which had the cumulative upkeep. I could see if that was what their problem was. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. All right.
Like, they couldn't fit both of them on there because they
there's
wanted
already
to do
so
for example. You don't need to give us an example.
Yeah, that's
what the rules are for.
That's some dated stuff there for sure.
Yeah.
But okay, well, I think you've cleared it up pretty well. It makes more sense. It's just like allied color sort of ability stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Next we have the Scarab Cards, and these are worthy of mentioning because we've gone over the Circle of Protections from Alpha, and Circle of Protections also happen to be in Ice Age. So Jake and I were commenting when we were making this presentation that it's such a waste of space in white to take up 5 slots. 10 slots in the case of Ice Age to white, with Scarab Cards for each color and Circle of Protections for each color. But the Scarab Cards, I'll just read one, and they all do the same thing, just one for each color. So the black Scarab would be 1 white in creature aura. Target creature gets +2/+2 as long as any opponent controls any black permanents. That creature cannot be blocked by black creatures. So they're excellent hate cards. It's pretty bonkers in draft, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If you were in white, it'd be
be
an
great
awesome.
multicolored block cards.
Yeah, I mean that's a huge pump.
But the problem with this effect is that it should just always be basically 1 mana more than what these are, and choose a color when it comes into play.
Yeah, I could see it at 2 white,
Yeah.
or even 2 white and a colorless or something at this time. But it was just a waste of slots. Unfortunately, that's kind of the way I feel about it.
Yeah, and it just is. It like there aren't two ways about it.
And they've stopped doing it since then, so they caught on to that as well.
Yeah.
They don't have these, multiple full color cycles that take up white. I think it makes you think that their original intention of white was to make it just the assist color, sort of like because they constantly were bringing this back early on. It seemed like they had Circle of Protections they were bringing back. They had wasn't there another cycle we saw before that took up another 5 slots
the
in white?
wards.
Yeah, so we've seen the ward spells. It just seems like they did that to white and not any other color, really.
No, nobody else was as adept at screwing everybody as white was.
Yeah. Okay, next we have another creature cycle. We have Snowhound. Oh, it's not a creature cycle.
No.
Dreams of the Dead, Frailized Supplicant, Orcish Healer, and Krovikan Elementalist. I guess you're going to have to explain this one.
This one's the allied color cycle. So this one's the full-on, these cards only work with their allied color permanence types. Or whatever that one can only activate off of allied color abilities.
They work with both of their allied colors.
Yeah.
So Snowhound is 2 and a white for a 1/1. Is it still a dog creature? Or
It's probably a hound now.
Okay. And you pay 1 and tap it, and you can return Snowhound to your hand and target blue or green creature to your hand as well. Interesting spell there. Dreams of the Dead, we've got an enchantment for 4. 1 and a blue activated ability. Take target white or black creature from your graveyard and put it onto the battlefield. And that creature now requires an additional commute of upkeep 2. And if it leaves play, removed from the game. That's actually kind of a cool spell.
Yeah, it is.
Frailized Supplicant is 1 and a green 1/1 cleric, and you can sack a red. You can tap and sack a red or white creature to have the Supplicant deal an amount of damage equal to half the creature's power to target creature or player. That's a weird one. For green, I guess fighting kind of makes sense, but color-specific fighting like that, very strange. Plus, you have to sack the creature, so it's a little bit weak. Orcish Healer, 2 red, 1/1 cleric. It's got 2 red tap, target creature can't regen. 1 red, 2 black tap, regenerate target black or green creature. 1 red, 2 green tap, regenerate target black or green creature. Very ugly card to look at because of the activated abilities. It's very confusing too. Krovikan Elementalist is a 2 black 1/1 wizard. It's got 2 and a red activated ability. Target creature gets +1/+0, and then it's got 2 blue. Target creature gains flying, and then at end of turn bury that creature. So, I see all the combination of abilities here. I think this is a legit cycle for sure. This is definitely an easily overlooked one, I think.
Yeah.
Next we've got Earth Lore and Forbidden Lore. So Earth Lore is 1 green land aura, and you tap the land that it's enchanting. So basically the land gains an activated ability of tap, enchanted blocking creature gets +1/+2 until end of turn, and then Forbidden Lore is 2 and a green, and it's same thing, enchant land, and the enchanted land gains the activated ability, tap it to give target creature +2/+1. So Earthlore does specify blocking creature.
I guess I didn't realize that when we pulled these out too, but I think they still kind of work.
So they're kind of like, they're both land auras in green that give opposite effects to each other. One gives +1/+2, one gives +2/+1. So they were kind of experimenting more, it looks like, with land auras, because there's a couple of other ones in this set that we didn't put in here, but these seemed like they were a little more related.
Yeah, because they were opposite with their boost, I thought they were a little closer, but I guess looking at them again, they may not have been a cycle, but they may have been.
Forbidden Lore is a great spell, though, and I think that was probably a very powerful card at the time, and limited at least. Next we have Innervating Infused, and this one is kind of weird because they're not necessarily... well, I kind of feel like they were thinking about the other one when they designed them, you know?
Hmm
So,
I guess this one maybe isn't a cycle either. I just always looked at them as a kid as a cycle because they did the opposite effect, but with the same extra draw.
I felt like they were a cycle too, so they're at least worthy of mentioning. Innervate was 1 in a blue instant. You could tap down an artifact, creature, or land, and then you drew a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. And then Infuse was 2 in a blue instant. Untap target artifact, creature, or land, and draw a card at the beginning of the next turn's upkeep. So why do you think the Infuse could have been a combat trick? So they thought that should be paid more than tapping down a dude for a turn?
I guess so. I guess the way that you could surprise somebody with Infuse to kill a creature was maybe more devastating than the way that you could tap something down to prevent an attack.
Yeah, you're right.
Um,
Because you could use Infuse in a combat situation and get a blocker they weren't expecting.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Okay, but you know, I think that's worthy of mention. The pictures too, you see sort of like an energy thing coming.
yeah, and I suppose just the second use of anything, you know, if you got a second use off of a land or off of an artifact, it could also be a little more, you know, like you wouldn't necessarily use those modes on Innervate that often. Tapping a land maybe, but
Yeah.
tapping an artifact not necessarily.
I see. Yeah, and you wouldn't untap a land too often with Infuse, but I can
But if
see
it were a
being...
little cheaper, you might actually be okay with untapping a land once in a
Mhm.
while. Not unless it had like wild growth or a bunch of wild growths on it or something like that. But even if you were just playing Infuses as cycling at that point, like slow cycling, for just 2 mana to untap an island with a wild growth on it.
I can see that. It's cool. Next we have the full multicolor cycle. So maybe you want to go through these?
These are just color hate, more color hate. They loved color hate back then. They couldn't get enough of it. Flooded Woodlands is 2 colors.
And maybe just go through the color hating that it's doing.
Okay,
Maybe
yeah.
we can just
These are all 2 color enchantments. Most of them are 4 mana, with the exception being Ghostly Flame, so I'll probably just start with that one. Ghostly Flame is 2 mana, and it's both written verbatim as both black and red permanents and spells are considered colorless sources of damage. It doesn't make them colorless, it changes their damage source as colorless. Like it doesn't change what they are. So they still have color, but they are just colorless sources of damage.
Okay.
What this was a way to get through protection and a way to stop Circle of Protection. It was a way to beat white enchantments.
And okay, yeah, I see that.
And then the rest of the cycle, they're all 4 mana enchantments, 2 colorless, and then 1 of each color. Flooded Woodlands is no green creature can attack unless its controller sacrifices a land whenever that creature attacks. That's for blue or black. And then Reclamation is the same thing for white-green. It's no black creature can attack unless its controller sacrifices a land whenever that creature attacks. Monsoon is the red-green one, and it's whenever an island is untapped at the end of its controller's turn, tap it, and Monsoon deals 1 damage to that player. That one's actually a very good one. And Glaciers is during your upkeep, you pay white and colorless, or I'm sorry, white and a blue, and then all mountains are plains.
Yeah, that's pretty strong too.
Yeah.
You could really destroy somebody with that. So
It's a really interesting cycle too, because they all color hose, but Ghostly Flame is kind of just the odd man out, you know, because of the way it's so obscurely color hosing. And they're not directly opposed to each of the other ones, you know, they're just opposed to one color. So
that's true, but it's like multicolor opposed to one color. That's also a relationship between them. Yeah, definitely.
I think it's a cooler way to do the cycle than the way that they have the 10 card cycle that's, you know, 2 uncommons. You know what I mean? They already had 15 uncommons in this. Well, if you include the Scarabs, they had 20 that are color hoser uncommons. You know, So
I see. Yeah. So and you just don't see that anymore.
yeah,
M14, newest example. They do Fiendslayer Paladin and Tidebinder Mage, stuff that doesn't actually have protection, but does still hate color in a different, much more lenient way.
yeah. But it's like it does it itself this one time or something like that. Like I think of Flash Freeze or you know what I mean. Like those effects are way more balanced and fair.
Yeah.
Whereas
Protection was too good.
or just any of these are just out of control. Like
Yeah.
Monsoon is obnoxious and Flooded Woodlands and Reclamation are just like green. Green can destroy an enchantment, but you can't attack me until you sacrifice lands each time.
No, you're right. It's really harsh.
Yeah.
And Monsoon at the time, with Mana Burn being around, the context of its time, it was, I'm sure,
it was really devastating.
Yeah, I bet. Especially since blue was, all counter spells. Okay, next we have the Talismans. This is a fairly simple one. We've got Hematite Talisman, which is a 2-mana artifact. It's got 3 untapped target permanent, and you can only use it when a red spell is successfully cast. So then we've got Lapis Lazuli Talisman, which is the same for blue, Malachite Talisman for green, Onyx Talisman for black, and Nacre or Nacre.
I think it's Nakra.
Nacre Talisman for white.
I'm not 100%.
And this is a kind of weird. It's like when you cast a red spell, you should be able to pay 3 to untap something. Seems kind of clunky.
It seems very clunky considering you have to invest in casting a red
2.
spell.
And you have to pay the casting cost of this on top of it. So I'm very confused what exactly these were for.
Yeah, at 3 mana, untapping something is so not going to happen, I mean, if it was just auto untap, these would have been playable.
Yeah,
because it would have made all of your red spells cheaper.
So this seems like an unfortunate waste of 5 slots into artifact. Make sure you're not out of the camera.
Oh,
I don't know if you are actually. Okay, so next we have Hydroblast and Pyroblast. 1 blue instant on both of, or 1 blue instant for Hydroblast, 1 red instant for Pyroblast, and they either counter the spell of the opposite color or destroy a permanent of that opposite color. So more color hate. Pyroblast, very unusual that you'd be able to counter blue, but we have seen it before in like Guttural Response or something like that. But this is clearly better than that. So this is kind of, we've done Blue Elemental and Red Elemental Blast because that was an alpha. So why exactly do you think they did more and shifted it into this?
Well, these allow for a little more shenanigans with Sleight of Mind. Because you can actually cast these on any color, permanent or spell, and then change the text on Hydroblast or Pyroblast.
Okay.
And then I guess, that's probably the biggest benefit you get from it.
That's cool. It seems weird that they'd want to upgrade it. It already felt like those cards were pretty good, but c'est la vie. I've got Ice Quake and Thermokarst next. So 1 and 2 black sorcery for Ice Quake, and it's destroy a land, and if it's a snow-covered land, it deals 1 damage to the land's controller. And then Thermokarst is destroy a land, and if it's a snow-covered land, gain a life. So land hate, essentially stone rains in black and green. And to this day, black and green still do get land hate, but they just don't make it 3 mana anymore. So this shows you sort of the antiquated design of land hate.
Yeah.
And this at the time probably wasn't even busted or anything, but
not really. It was pretty typical of land destruction.
It's been a long time since we've seen 3 mana land destruction. Next we have Knight of Stromgald and Order of the White Shield. So they tend to always come back to this sort of idea. We've got White Knight, Black Knight, and then we had what was the one in Fallen Empires called? Order of Lightbearer and Order of White
Hand.
Order of the Ebon Hand. So now we've got Knight of Stromgald, which is 2 black, 2/1 pro white Knight, and then it's got 2 black, +1/+0, and 1 black first strike. So this is essentially the same thing as Knight of the Ebon Hand, just with a new name. And then we've got the same thing with the Order of the White Shield, pro black first strike, can pump it. It's weird that they had the ability to swap.
I think it was swapped. Yeah,
it looks like that was a mistake. So why did they just not bring back?
I think that I wish we had pulled those up, but I feel like the other ones had the
Flip-flop
cost swap.
costs?
Yeah.
You
So
might
First
be
Strike
right.
was more expensive, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, I think you're wrong. I think it was still like this.
Then I have no idea what they were
I
thinking.
don't feel like it was inflatable for one black.
No, I don't think so either, because that would have been too good.
So I don't exactly
I know that the reason they changed it to this was because it wasn't the same place,
Okay.
at the very least.
Maybe they just needed to fill some slots, and they knew that this was
These were very good.
and this was a cycle that worked.
Hmm.
That was balanced maybe
Hmm.
against each other. Okay, next we have the Depletion Lands. These were unfortunately a failed experiment in lands,
Yeah.
but essentially they all enter with two.
No.
Wait, though
They
enter.
enter untapped, and then they don't untap as normal if there's a depletion counter on them, and then you remove a depletion counter, or remove all depletion counters. No, remove
No.
a depletion counter from them during your upkeep, or at the beginning of your upkeep. So they are dual lands that tap for a colored mana and then get a depletion counter by tapping, or when you tap them for mana.
Mm-hmm. So I've played with them before. I think you probably have too, and they're not very good.
No.
They take too long, too slow, and they don't fix enough. Like this seems like a cycle that could have been, one card a rare or something that was a mana fixer like that.
For any color, yeah.
Yeah. So this was kind of an unfortunate, wasted land cycle.
Yeah.
But you live, you learn,
Yeah.
right?
I really, actually, now that you say that, I really don't even think that card is a busted idea for a card at all.
No, not at all. Next we have the two demons, Minion of Tevish Zat and Minion of Leshrac. Minion of Tevish Zat and Minion of Leshrac are both 7 mana demon cards. Tevish Zat being a 4/4, Minion of Leshrac being a 5/5. They both have an upkeep you have to pay. With Tevish Zat you have to pay 2 black. With Leshrac you have to sack a creature or minion, or it deals 5 damage to you. And if you don't pay Tevish Zat, it deals 2 damage to you. They both have tap abilities that are beneficial for you. So Tevish Zat can tap and give a creature +3/-2, which is cool. It's versatile. Pump effect or removal. And then with Leshrac, you can tap to destroy a creature or land. So obviously beneficial effect there. Leshrac is also pro-black, so they did give it quite a bit extra, but having to sack a creature is
Quite a bit worse than 2 blue or 2 black during your upkeep.
Yep, these are cool cards. I thought they were really fun.
And actually, Tevish Zat is only 2 damage to you. It doesn't even hurt you anymore or tap itself or anything like that. So there's really no downside to not paying it. It's just 2 to your face.
Yeah, you're right. So this is a cool card.
Yeah.
You don't even have to pay it if you don't. It does suck that Minion of Leshrac can't.
You can use its ability, but
in response.
Yeah, in response to the trigger, but that means that you don't get it as a blocker or the tactical advantage of being able to use the ability whenever
That's
you
true,
want.
but it seems like it was designed wrong then, because
Yeah.
it's trying to make it so you can't use the activated ability.
I think that at the time,
maybe at the time the rules were different.
The rules were different, and you had to actually pay for their upkeep costs before you could use their ability.
Yeah, I bet that's probably.
I think it was written into the rules that way.
Yeah, so this just shows how they've really changed it since then. Okay, next we have Order of the Sacred Torch and Stromgald Cabal. These are both 3 mana 2/2 creatures. Is Paladin a knight now too, or is it still?
Yeah.
Okay, so they should both be knights.
Mm-hmm.
And then they both have a tap. Pay 1 life to destroy a black spell on Sacred Torch, and pay 1 life to counter a white spell on the black one. So slightly different uses there. One is destroy a black spell, and one is counter a white spell.
It's the same.
Is it?
Yeah, they misworded it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was destroy. I thought it would have been Sacred Torch was destroy a permanent,
No.
and then Stromgald, or destroy a permanent and a spell, whereas this only lets you counter a spell. So this doesn't let you destroy.
I have to check, but I'm pretty sure it's meant to be counter as well. I think they're exact opposites of each other, or the exact same, just flipped color.
That's interesting. I actually thought they were different because I felt like the white one was just strictly better.
Look here.
looking up that Oracle text. Yeah, the unfortunate aspect of old cards is sometimes they're hard to interpret because they just didn't quite have the consistency that they do now.
Yeah, it is counter.
Okay, so they just screwed up the wording, and that's kind of funny that we stumbled upon that. The only way to stumble upon it was to see the actual 2 cards being worded differently. Interesting. Next, we have the Snowcovered Land cycle.
Yeah.
So Jake was teasing me because I almost skipped this one. It's true. This is this is like the important aspect of Ice Age. Now, you said there were no Snow-Covered Lands printed in both Homelands and Alliances, which are the other 2 sets in this block.
Yeah, but keep in mind that Homelands was just slapped into it later on when they started doing the 3-block structure.
Okay.
Or the 3-set block structure.
Now, did Alliances interact with Snowlands, though?
They had 2 cards that interacted with Snowlands, I think, in it.
Okay.
So not a ton. But Cold Snap brought it all back.
I see. But Cold Snap, another thing, released way, way after. So
Alliances was also themed more around the idea that things were actually thawing out, you know.
Oh, okay.
So,
but Snow-Covered Lands, these in Cold Snap, as you say, when we get to that, these lands interacted much more positively with cards in the set. And this, there were a couple that were interesting, but overall, it was difficult to get enough Snow-Covered Lands to really use anything to super advantage. Okay, next we have Spoils of Evil and Spoils of War. So besides having similar names, we have a 2 colorless and a black instant. And for each artifact or creature in your opponent's graveyard, you can add a colorless mana to your mana pool, and you gain a life. And then we have Spoils of War, which is a black and X sorcery. You get to put X +1/+1 counters on any number of target creatures, and you can distribute it however you want. And X is equal to the number of creatures and artifacts in your opponent's graveyard. So that would have been cool, a little strategy if you had like a mill thing going on. But it is a sorcery, so you can't use it as a combat trick, or else it would have been pretty insane. Because you do get to distribute it however you want, which is cool. You can see how these sort of interact with each other. Because Spoils of Evil lets you get the mana to ramp to use the Spoils of War for full value.
Spoils of Evil is actually sweet because it's instant, you know. So
you can gain life at instant speed.
If you had, well, beyond that, now it's actually much better because then it had mana burn. So if you couldn't do anything with the mana, you were just zeroing out, basically. But now, if you have an instant speed burn spell off Spoils of Evil, you can do it. I'm thinking for Commander, basically. There are people who use their graveyard and like take advantage of their graveyard, you know. Taking them out at instant speed with this plus some X spell would be really, really cool if you were in something.
I like it, but yeah, I never played these cards at the time.
Me either.
Oh, weird.
That is weird.
Harvest. So now we have Weird Harvest. This is a segment of the show where we talk about an old card from the past, or maybe a new card. But specifically, we're looking for weird names, weird pictures, not necessarily weird card design. So we're in Ice Age this week, so we figured, why not pick an Ice Age card? I think we'd actually foreshadowed that we were going to do this card. We talked about it before.
Yeah, a while ago.
But now let's do it. What better time? Hydroblast Lemur. Now this kind of has a funny story, besides its ridiculous name. We see sort of a winged little furry creature on a mountainside. And Jake, maybe you want to explain the mistake Richard Thomas made?
When he got the name for the card, which is how they did art description back then, was they just sent you the name of the card. And I think they even told you what it did. He designed it as a lemur. So
like a monkey.
Yeah, so here's our little primate friend that is actually Oracle, a spirit.
Yeah, because that was what that I guess is what a Lemur is.
Yeah.
Or is it Lemura? Or is it?
It might be Lemura. It's Greek, I think. So it might be Lemura.
Hyoleptrus we looked up, and it doesn't appear to be a word, but hyalo is pertaining to...
Of or pertaining to glass. So glass-like or made of glass. Or so what my thoughts were that they were trying to go for like an
icy
icy
shard.
look. Yeah,
Yeah.
a sharded spirit would have been a sweet kind of look to it. But yeah, did not.
Unfortunately, it's a winged lemur.
Yeah, it did not pan out for Richard Thomas. However, if they ever wanted to reprint this card in like just a special release as just a thing to reprint, definitely give it the art where it looks glassy, you know.
Yeah.
Like redo the art.
But I mean, the art's not bad.
It's
Besides
not
the fact
bad
that
per se, no.
Yeah, that it's winged.
It's winged. It's a winged lemur.
Yeah.
And the wings aren't even that glassy looking. They're
No.
sort of
So,
kind of transparent.
I don't think their intention was. Let's do the text, the flavor text. It's the Lemures looked harmless until they descended on my troops. Within moments, only bones remained. So he kind of assumed it was like a winged lemur because they descended on the troops. Did they get the flavor text before?
I feel
like they should have. You know,
I kind of feel like.
I feel like they do,
Maybe they
actually,
do.
because it does sometimes seem like they incorporate it into the picture.
I guess if they were just giving them, yeah, you're right.
All right, well, that's all we got for this week, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we're going to dive right into, let's see, we've got Alliances next, right?
Yeah, and we'll probably try and do Homelands and Cold Snap. I'm feeling ambitious about that because
Yeah, we'll
I don't
see.
think it'll be a problem.
We don't know how many cycles yet total, but all right, check in next week. We'll see you then.